When Gene Hackman passed away, he left behind a dazzling financial empire of cash, opulent real estate, and priceless art. Yet, without a clear will, his family was plunged into a storm of mysteries, disputes, and burning questions. Were his children the true heirs, or was a hidden force determined to seize this fortune? Meanwhile, Hackman's $3.8 million Santa Fe mansion, once his secluded retreat, now stood locked down amid a fierce investigation. Perhaps the will had been altered, but did it truly reflect Hackman's wishes, or was it the result of shadowy manipulation? Disputes over property had already torn apart the lives of many Hollywood legends, and now it seemed Hackman's estate was headed down a similarly treacherous path. This was no ordinary conflict. It was a fierce battle for truth, justice, and hidden secrets. As the legend of Gene Hackman came to an end, he left behind not only unforgettable film roles and meticulously crafted books, but also an enormous fortune exceeding $80 million. The staggering sum now sparked one burning question. Who would ultimately claim this wealth? Although his two daughters, Elizabeth and Leslie Hackman, stood as the presumed heirs, was the matter really that straightforward? Gene Hackman was more than a film icon. He was a shrewd investor with vision dating back to the 70s, fully aware that fame could erupt in an instant and vanish just as quickly. Hackman boasted a portfolio of lavish homes, yet his crown jewel was the 12-acre estate in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where he and his wife, Betsy Arakawa, enjoyed decades of serene life far from the relentless glare of fame. In his twilight years, Hackman dedicated much of his time to painting, amassing a collection valued at millions. Even after departing Hollywood in 2004, with timeless films such as Superman, 1978, The French Connection, he continued to earn royalties every year. His legacy in art and cinema burned bright. Few people realize that after retiring, Hackman dove into writing novels, and his published works earned him a hefty income, adding to the mystery surrounding his assets. With such an enormous fortune at stake, doubts arose. Would his wealth truly be split? The burning question was whether Elizabeth and Leslie would inherit everything as it seemed. The answer, however, was far from simple. The passing of Gene Hackman and his wife was still under investigation, and according to inheritance law, if someone dies under unusual circumstances, their entire estate can be frozen until authorities reach a final verdict. This meant that Elizabeth and Leslie might not receive any money right away. Inheritance isn't just about money, it's about control. What unseen forces could be meddling in this process? Lawyers specializing in asset management warned that unexpected will clauses might force the fortune into a prolonged legal battle. Outside parties eager to interfere were always on the prowl when such a massive fortune was involved. Some people, whether by legal or shady means, were determined to dismantle the estate. What had Gene Hackman planned for his daughters? An informed source revealed that Hackman had prepared a detailed will years ago with specific rules for dividing his assets. This twist only deepened the suspense surrounding the inheritance, yet no one except his lawyer knew the exact details of those provisions. Would Hackman have left his fortune directly to his daughters, or had he set his own conditions? Were portions allocated for charities or close friends? And if the assets remained frozen for too long, who would manage them? These perplexing questions still haunted the case. Could this mark the start of an explosive inheritance war? While Elizabeth and Leslie were seen as the rightful heirs, the burning question remained. Would they have the patience to endure a long legal battle? Was there someone else meddling with the property? What hidden surprises did Hackman leave in his will? When an $80 million fortune is at stake, the drama goes far beyond who receives the money. It's about who wields control. Inheritance is never merely about cash, it is power, and this thrilling saga had only just begun. Every detail of this high-stakes drama hinted at deeper conflicts. The mystery grew with each passing moment. Santa Fe police had sealed off the mansion, and one thing was absolutely clear. Nothing inside could be sold or moved until the investigation was resolved. Legally, Elizabeth and Leslie Hackman were the rightful heirs of the Santa Fe mansion. But the family's lawyer declared that the property could not be transferred until the official inquiry was complete. If the police took months or even years to conclude the case, Elizabeth and Leslie would be forced to wait with the house, facing unforeseen consequences. Meanwhile, property taxes on a $3.8 million estate had to be paid, and every rising maintenance and management cost threatened to significantly lower its value if the mansion wasn't kept in top shape. What could Hackman's two daughters do? They might simply wait for the investigation's results, even if it took an eternity. They could also file a petition to have the property released, though the court might deny their request until the police wrapped up their work. Alternatively, they might explore a creative way to utilize the house in the meantime. However, when a mansion is linked to a mysterious investigation, who would dare step into an asset that feels like a curse? Once the refuge where Gene Hackman escaped the glare of Hollywood, the Santa Fe house had morphed into a story more thrilling than any film he ever starred in. Perhaps after everything was settled, the mansion would finally be handed over to Elizabeth and Leslie, but one burning question remained. Did they truly want to own a home shrouded in darkness? The Santa Fe mansion could either become a cornerstone of Gene Hackman's legacy or remain a forbidden mystery that no one dared to touch. This saga was far from over. The heavy burden of uncertainty loomed over the legacy truly left behind by the legendary actor. While everyone assumed that only Elizabeth and Leslie were the rightful heirs, unsettling rumors emerged about a mysterious third figure. Who could this person be? Did they genuinely have a claim to Hackman's estate, or were they simply a name introduced to stir chaos? Various theories were circulating, including one that suggested a member of Betsy Arakawa's family, Hackman's wife, who had built a life with him in Santa Fe, might also be entitled to part of his assets. A mysterious figure lurked in Hackman's will. Did he leave some assets to a trusted friend, a charitable organization, or someone entirely unexpected? No one recalled anyone specifically appointed to manage the assets for his daughters. If Hackman doubted Elizabeth and Leslie's financial savvy, he might have arranged for someone else to supervise his wealth. With so many uncertainties clouding the will, it was clear that this case wouldn't be resolved quickly. Any disputes could freeze Hackman's assets indefinitely, meaning Elizabeth and Leslie might spend years fighting to reclaim what was rightfully theirs. The ongoing controversy suggested that if the matter went to trial, every asset could be locked away for a long time. Lawyers were expected to spend years debating the will's legality. Every detail of Hackman's health would be scrutinized to determine if he was truly lucid when he made his final decisions. This could mean that Elizabeth and Leslie might never receive their father's fortune as they had hoped. The pressing question remained, who really controlled Gene Hackman's $80 million empire? What was unfolding went far beyond a typical inheritance dispute. It wasn't simply about splitting money. It was a tale of power, control, and baffling mysteries. Where was Hackman's genuine will? Had it been altered, and if so, who was behind those changes? If the investigation dragged on, could the assets be divided in ways no one expected? Most importantly, was this a legitimate inheritance or a premeditated conspiracy? One thing was certain, Gene Hackman's $80 million fortune would not easily fall into the heirs' hands. The saga was far from over. After stepping away from Hollywood, Hackman embraced a quiet, private life. He rarely appeared in public, avoided events, and never discussed current affairs. Yet after his passing, shadows from his past emerged, and unknown figures began to claim a share of his vast estate. In the first few weeks after his death, the family's legal team was inundated with bizarre requests. One middle-aged man claimed to be Hackman's biological son from a secret affair in the 1970s and demanded a DNA test. Another former personal assistant alleged that in his final years, Hackman had supported a few close associates financially, even though no official records of these beneficiaries existed. The influx of unexpected claimants and dubious legal challenges only intensified the tangled web of this high-stakes inheritance drama. A longtime friend of Hackman unexpectedly reappeared, claiming that Hackman had promised him a share of his wealth. However, there was no written evidence to support this agreement, leaving the Hackman family in a very tough spot. It wasn't just individuals making these claims. This sudden revelation sent shockwaves through the community, raising eyebrows and stoking the flames of suspicion. Meanwhile, charitable organizations began watching the unfolding drama with keen interest. For years, Hackman was recognized as a quiet yet generous benefactor, donating to veterans groups, especially those aiding soldiers from the Vietnam War. He was also a longtime patron of the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum, a sanctuary for the art he so admired. Unverified reports hinted that Hackman had planned to donate part of his estate to charity before his death. If these accounts were true, his will could include clauses that allocate a significant share of his wealth to these causes. This possibility sparked urgent concerns that the Hackman family might not get the entire inheritance. Legal battles could erupt over which charities deserve funds and in what amounts if Hackman's will lacked clear instructions. Some charities might even sue the family to claim donations they believed were promised. Like unclaimed vultures circling overhead, numerous claimants, both individuals and organizations, threatened to drag Elizabeth and Leslie Hackman into a lengthy legal war. If any formal claim reached the courts, Hackman's estate could be frozen until all disputes were settled. Had Gene Hackman planned well enough to avoid an inheritance showdown? Without clear instructions in his will, these conflicts could drag on endlessly, especially when $80 million is on the line, turning inheritance into a battle of power. It's all about power. Money is not merely wealth, it is power. If the legal battles intensified, Hackman's fortune could be split in ways his family never imagined. Elizabeth and Leslie would have to fight fiercely to defend their father's legacy, with attorneys working hard to show that other claimants had no legal right to the estate. If part of the wealth was diverted to charities, was that truly Hackman's wish? No one had a clear answer yet, but one thing was certain. The battle for Gene Hackman's fortune was only just beginning. These uncertainties deepened the mystery and fueled a growing sense of betrayal among those close to the legacy. When fortune turns into a curse, Hollywood is not only the birthplace of legends but also a battleground for brutal inheritance disputes. When a star departs, they leave behind not just an artistic legacy, but also enormous fortunes that spark endless conflicts. Though Gene Hackman led a quiet life away from the limelight, his $80 million fortune risked becoming a curse. For many years, there were dark whispers that if someone had manipulated Hackman in his later years, his assets might have been dispersed before his death. When millions are at stake, trust becomes a rare commodity. Hollywood had seen countless families torn apart by money, and now the Hackman family risked becoming the next victim. Although questions remained unanswered, one thing was certain: Gene Hackman's wealth could turn into a crushing burden instead of a proud legacy. If nothing was resolved soon, Elizabeth and Leslie Hackman might lose control of their father's entire estate. Would Gene Hackman's fortune transform into a legacy or a curse? What Gene Hackman would have wanted. Gene Hackman was a man of action. He never chased fame, nor was he obsessed with money. Like many other Hollywood stars at the height of his career, Hackman walked away from the spotlight to embrace a simple life. He only desired a simple life, but instead, he left behind a saga more complex than any movie script. If there was one thing Gene Hackman truly wished for, it was to rest in peace. But would the world allow him that peace, or was this just the beginning of another explosive Hollywood scandal? One thing was clear: the mystery of Gene Hackman's legacy was far from resolved. His $80 million fortune was not only a massive sum, it had become a curse. Gene Hackman's assets had not yet truly found an owner. The investigation was still ongoing, and his family might have to battle for years to reclaim what was rightfully theirs. Gene Hackman may have departed from this world, but the story of his assets was still unfolding. Would Elizabeth and Leslie eventually regain their inheritance rights, or would some unseen force completely alter the situation? The answer was still waiting.